Every time you're pushed against the wall, what do you do? How do you get yourself out of it?
Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us and welcome to the Founders in LA podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Cole, and this is an opportunity to shine the spotlight through a product lens on some of the exceptional founders we have as part of the LA community in an unedited, one take organic conversation. With us in the studio today is Hamza Farooq. Thanks for coming down, Hamza.
Glad to be here.
Excited to have you here. I'm really ready for this one. This is going to be great. But first, a word from our sponsors. Founders in LA is brought to you by Unita. Unita Club is the co-working space that sets itself apart. With locations in El Segundo, Manhattan Beach, and Hermosa, Unita is where creativity flourishes. Unlike traditional offices, they provide an inspiring environment where ideas can thrive and businesses can grow. With Unita, there's no hidden fees, flexible terms, options for dedicated offices, and unlimited access to conference rooms, a photo studio, this podcast studio, plus standard and 3D printers, and 24/7 access at any of our locations. They're local champions who support neighborhood businesses, open their event spaces to nonprofits, and celebrate art, music, and culture. Join United Club and experience co-working like never before. Learn more at www.unita.club. We're also brought to you by the Product Managers Association Los Angeles, available at pma.la. They're the largest professional organization for product and designers in LA. With more than 4,000 members from over 500 companies, they host monthly meetups, organize the Product Leader Council, and have a mentorship program where they connect working product managers with students from underrepresented groups to build a better and more diverse next gen. To learn more about PMA, go to pma.la. Our guest today is Hamza Farooq. He's the founder of Traversaal.ai, and he's also an adjunct professor at UCLA and Stanford. Go Bruins. Can you give us a 30-second description of Traversal?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, thank you for having me here. Traversaal.ai is AI company that came into existence because a lot of people, ever since ChatGPT came into existence, companies have been wanting to build products that are similar to it or use it for their benefit. What we did is that we identified that coming up with a demo is very easy. Anyone can spin up a small machine or a collab notebook and build an application. But scaling it and making it available to a large user group and run it at production level was a whole different ballgame. So what we did is we built Traversal as a platform company that gives companies the ability to build large scale LLM powered applications.
Wow. So one of the biggest questions about using technologies like LLMs, specifically from OpenAI, was having to understand, to trust that, hey, I'm putting information into this model, and what are they going to do with it? And I think, that had that. I was going to say traditionally, and we're talking a world where OpenAI, where ChatGPT was really just launched about a year ago this week from the recording. Um, I feel like that's almost even changed in the last few weeks. Whereas at the time of this recording, we just had the shakeup at OpenAI. Sam Altman was kicked out and then went back. But what I have to imagine is that eroded quite a bit of the already shaky trust in, hey, as a corporation, as a company, I'm giving my information to this. And already there's question marks of how much do I want to give, how comfortable I am. But in a world where even there's volatility at the senior leadership level of the DNA of OpenAI, which seems to be getting rewritten right now, I imagine that there's lots of opportunity for folks like Traversal to come in and say, hey, you don't have to build off these other large language models. We can help you build one internally.
Yep. I think that is exactly why we founded a company. Whenever, I've been a machine learning engineer for all my life. That's the only job I have done. And we never bought a model from a company. We would just downloaded an open source model and we would run from sklearn or scikit. The thing is, LLM is now analogous to OpenAI, which is untrue. I've been teaching LLMs for the past 3 years, even before GPT as we know it came into existence. And open source, there were a lot of models that were just put out there. So we need to disconnect LLM to OpenAI. We need to understand that there's a whole and architecture that is available for you to use as open source. So we have the encoder models, we have the decoder models, and what our specialty is that, I'll start with an example of my first customer. My first customer is a healthcare company, and what the first concern they had is exactly what you said: what happens to our data? And what we did is that we built a closed loop LLM application for them that is entirely hosted on their platform. Nothing leaves them. So there's a vector database that is needed. We hosted the open source version. The encoder model that was needed, that is an open source, and even the decoder model that we use is hosted on their machines. So building compliance and trust and getting the same performance and latency that we expect from OpenAI, we are able to offer without depending on one company.
That's great. And so for folks who may not be as familiar with open source models, it's repositories basically built by a community to be meant to be used by anyone, I believe, in any way. Um, but at the same time, it's there's a lot of skill that's required to fine tune that for a particular company. So for Traversal, it would be to say that yes, you could use these open models, these open source models to build this, but you guys have the expertise to be able to apply it quickly and swiftly into another organization.
Absolutely. So, let's say you start a new business and you need to build a website, and you either hire someone, you either go to a Webflow, a website like Webflow, and you try to build a website through that, and you discover like, I can't do this. Then you end up hiring someone as a developer, or you hire an agency to build you a website. This is the same thing that's happening in LLMs. People start with their own demos, and then they're like, we can't do this, or we don't have the expertise to do all the things end to end. Demo again is very simple, but building it out as a production level is very difficult. So what we have done is that we have learned, working with different customers, to build it in a way that we reduce your time to fine tuning by, let's say, 5 times. We reduce the cost by 10 times. And every single customer, we have about 10 customers, they have one thing in common: they do not have data scientists, they do not have machine learning engineering, and they do not have the infrastructure to host those things themselves. And this is where what most companies are like. We're not talking about the Metas of the world or Googles of the world that have all the technology, but the technology that a lot of companies are like, just give it to us. Like Stripe is a product. You don't have to worry about payment system again. Stripe just integrate, you don't even think about it. So we want to be the Stripe of LLM, where you're like, hey, yeah, we're going to use Traversal. They have so many services. We can start with one of the products or services, integrate into our ecosystem, and it's a plug and play for us.
So, how did you find yourself in the position to start building these? And what I appreciate is, you're calling it out correctly. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors right now. Putting together a demo is a lot easier than to put together a functional product. How did you come to this place? How did you decide to dedicate your time to Traversal?
So it's a, it doesn't happen overnight. It's a journey. And the journey that started on was about 3 years ago, when I started teaching about LLMs at University of Minnesota. I wrote a letter to the associate dean, and I was like, listen, we need to do more about how we teaching our students about deploying products and models into infrastructure. They don't know anything beyond Jupyter notebooks. So they're like, would you like to come and teach? So the course that I was teaching at that time was machine learning system design.
Hmm.
And I would teach how to deploy a basic Jupyter notebook into production, and how to it integrates with the larger system. Over there, I started teaching NLP models. So, and then what I started to see is that I sort of got caught up with the advancements that were happening at that time. And Bert had come in, attention is all you need, sort of was gaining popularity, and I started teaching that. And what that led to is a very interesting story. Is my wife and I, we travel a lot, and we always, what is the number one problem? You need to find the best hotel or the Airbnb to stay. How do we go through that? We look through reviews, and we read description and read. So it's a good amount of time spent doing that research. So my wife was sitting one day, and she's like, you do so much AI stuff, why can't you build an assistant? She called the word assistant, that can tell us which is the best hotel for us just based on some reviews. So that led me to thinking, then how can I do that? So I started scraping TripAdvisor, and I built in the first LLM application by myself, which was a retrieval system, which would say you would put in exactly what you're looking at as if you would talk to a person. I want to stay in a hotel which has these amenities, it is close to this location, and it should be not more than this dollar amount. And it started giving me that result. And that demo, that product still exists because every time we travel, we use that. I scraped the city. We went to Tokyo and Kyoto a couple of weeks ago. We did the same exercise. So that journey, that hobby became a part of my life, and I started doing more and more and more of that. I started building products, and then I was like, wait, this seems like a great opportunity. And then I started, I met my first customer when I was actually at Google, and I was like, I'm thinking of leaving Google to start my own company. And they're like, well, bring us up when you have left. And I left Google, and the next day they were my customers.
Did you already have? I mean, that's a fantastic, fantastic segue into how did you get to your first customer? So you already have the product? You already were building the product with your wife for for the TripAdvisor or how to best visit this trip in an NLP, natural learning processing. Uh, that's phenomenal. That's you kind of like as a as your hobby, as just kind of your everyday life. As you guys were traveling, you tried to solve your own problem with it, and that's how you kind of stumbled upon this thing that could be applied to other folks. So when you were ready to leave Google, like at what stage was this product, and then what was the trigger that caused you to decide, hey, I'm going to leave my comfy job, stability, good paycheck to, hey, I'm going to found a company and test the waters with how that whole lifestyle goes.
So there are multiple, there's a compounding factor to that. The one thing I started doing is that I started teaching at a platform called Maven. And Maven is this great place where you go and learn. I endorse them. They haven't paid me to say that, but I actually believe in their in the mission. And they, the money that I was making from teaching at Maven was helping me actually not depend on the comfy salary. Of course, it's not. It's a fraction of that, but the day-to-day expenses were being could have been covered and would be covered by Maven. And I was in the zone. And I was like, this is the time, and there will be no other. Like, I might be delayed if I go to the market later because the market would have matured with LLMs.
Right.
And I've been in this industry for a while, and I've been doing this at Google. I did this at Walmart. I think I need to take the leap. So I took my wife on. We went on a vacation, and I was like, "Listen, this is my idea. I really want to do this." And she was like, "You have my full support. Let's just go ahead and do it." Took me a couple of months to decide, and I quit. And here's the interesting part: I had built nothing before I left. Like at the time of leaving Google, I was like, "Oh, I've done enough demos to know what to do." And then I fell into the trap of, "Oh, this is not scalable." So the first month was the one that I worked maybe 20 hours a day to build the product. So I left Google, I think, on 24th or 25th of June, and 14th of July, I had built the first version of the product.
And you already had a customer lined up.
Yes. So I had a customer lined up, and the way I would meet customers was through the executive programs that I would teach. I've been teaching for a while now again. So they came to an executive course of mine, and they were like, listen, we are thinking, because I showed the potential of generation and how to do retrieval in a smarter way, like a conversation search. And they basically said, listen, we are thinking about building this. Would you be interested in working with us? So I was going to join them as a mentor, as an advisor. But then I was like, wait, I think I should be the one to build it for them. And then went ahead, and I could Google, and the next day I signed the contract with them. And then I started building, only to realize the technical debt that I had. and then and then it just took a lot of hours of work. And that's where I got like it's like a boot camp. Being a founder, the first time founder is like a boot camp, because the first 2 months you're just in a shell shock. You don't get that Google food or comfort. You're just getting things done, and I love that. And I like, but I should have known better that this is what's going to happen.
But you fought through it, and that's fantastic. And what I appreciate about your story is I feel like a lot of times that sales part of it, the customer acquisition, that falls to the background a little too much for some founders out there. They get focused too much on the product and the problem, even though they're trying to solve the right problem. But to get to a place where you can actually make money, you can actually see it becoming a viable company, not just a and something you're tinkering with. It really comes down to that customer. So that's fascinating. So you got your first customers through Maven. Um, how are you expanding beyond that? Are you still able to be comfortably like grabbing some customers from your traditional channels? How are you looking at getting folks in the door after the first couple customers?
So this is interesting because you know you read there's a difference between what you read, and there's a difference between the journey.
Yeah,
So you read is, you're going to leave Google, and you're going to have a VC come and pamper you and take care of you. Not just come and take it, but you see a lot of people around you with your profile getting funding and zero revenue, pre-ref, and they're able to generate money from it. And not money, but VC money. And the idea was that, oh, I think I can rely on some of that. I have 2 3 customers lined up, and then I can get if I get introductions through VCs. So that didn't happen. We haven't raised to date. We started in first week of July. Now it's at this time it's 1st of December, and we have not raised from anyone. We have crossed about 300,000 in annual recurring revenue, which is, and we've bootstrapped. There are 12 of us right now, 4 of us from UCLA. So the idea was that it's going to come organically, and that does not happen. It's it's not a Hollywood movie. It's not a you think it's a movie, but you actually have to see an opportunity. And I'll give you another example of how I've gotten more cognizant of sales. If I were to ask you that in the morning, and I heard this very recently, so I'll repeat this example to you. In the morning, how many red cars did you see on your way here? Do you remember?
I couldn't tell you one of them.
Right? But if I told you that I'll give you $10 for every red car that you've seen today. So from here to now, every time you see a red car, it would register, right? This is the same thing as opportunities. They're in front of you. So what I did is, the VCs who were not willing to give me money, I asked them, would you like me to build your product, because I think this one product for you would really work good. And that one, the first VC said yes, and then second VC said yes. So I've converted those VCs who didn't give me money into customers. And this is what you have to identify: a roadmap and opportunity. And there is something that you can learn beforehand, but this is, you learn on the road. And you should just be willing to not give up, and be like, okay, every time you're pushed against the wall, what do you do? How do you get yourself out of it? And then you become better. Like, first you get a harder skin, because you get so much criticism. But then you learn about it. You're like, okay, how do I talk to this customer? What is the problem, and what problem should I solve for them, and what advantage will it give them? And that has sort of like allowed me to insert myself into conversations, like reach out cold messaging on LinkedIn, but targeted. It's not like, hi, we are this, and we can help with this. It's actually personalized and targeted. And I believe that founder led sales in the world of LLM is the most important thing, because customers are more technical than salespeople or business development at this point. The customer has learned what they need to do. or what they want from you. So when they come in and this like, do you do this and this and this and this, so they have done their homework. So you need to be on your toes for that.
That's fantastic. And part of what I love about your story is that you didn't go for the VC funding right away. In a previous conversation, I believe you said you're not going to look for it until you hit 1 million in ARR, in annual recurring revenue, which seems not possible. It seems like the track you're on right now, which is fantastic. And I also love what you said about what happens when your back's against the wall and you need to you just need to find the way. It reminds me of another founder I was speaking to recently his saying is there's always a door. There's always a door. You just have to find it.
Yeah, I think you have to believe in yourself and not listen to the people who are going to put you down. I have people in my own company. I have people who didn't believe in the product. They were just helping out as, contractors and part-time people, but they are so sold about the product now because they've seen they couldn't see the vision, but when you actually see the product, they're like, oh, we are so much better than others, or at least we're competitive enough. You're right there. This is something real. They can feel it, they can see it. And then you surprise them and they start believing in you, and then you get introduced through them to other people.
And it's a wonderful community here we have in Los Angeles. I'm so excited to have you here visit with us in the studio today. Um, Grounding this in LA, and shifting gears a little bit, because it's fantastic to hear what's happening at Traversal. Looking forward to keeping in touch, maybe having you in a future show as we'll see the progression of how you guys do. For today, love to hear about LA ness and what's the most LA thing that's happened to you. It could be tech related. It doesn't have to be.
Well, I'm all about food. So if anyone knows anything about me, I'm all about food. So the one thing that I've discovered in LA is Armenian bakeries,
Mm.
and their desserts are just amazing. And they're also not expensive, like you don't pay the money for a French bakery, but they're just so beautiful, like the decor, the way they're set up, and it's just amazing. So every time I'm here in LA, I try to find an Armenian bakery and at least eat one pastry from there.
Oh, that's fantastic. I know. I love. We are a melting pot of gastronomy, I guess, here in Los Angeles, and yeah, our large and amazing Armenian population. So I haven't checked them out, but I will next time. In a pre-interview discussion, he was talking about he went to one and ended up with 6 sweets
Yeah,
before leaving the door. Well, thank you so much, Hamza. Our guest today is Hamza Farooq. It's Traversaal AI, Traversal with two A's. Really, thank you so much for coming down and sharing with us.
absolutely. It's a pleasure.
Amazing. I'd like to thank our sponsors again, PMALA and Unita. I'd like to thank you all for listening to us. And if you like what you hear, please smash that subscribe button. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll catch you next time on Founders in LA.